Welcome back. Joining me now is Rasmus Jarlov, Danish member of the parliament and chairman of the Defense Committee. We are so privileged to have you here at what I know is a tense and critical time. So let me jump right in. President Trump has posted on social media that Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back. I don't hear an off-ramp in that. What is your response, sir?
Thanks a lot for having me on. It's really important to talk to you. Our response is that this is a very, very difficult situation for us because we're being asked to do something that we can't do. We can't just hand over Greenland to the United States. There's people living there, and they're very clear. They don't want to become Americans. They don't want to be governed by the U.S. or become part of the United States. And we can't just, sell off people like we're in the 1800s. We don't do that anymore. And we have to protect them. Greenland is a self-governing region of Denmark, but they're citizens of our country. They have representation in our parliament. So it's pretty much like an American state. So it'd be like if the United States was asked to hand over Alaska or Hawaii to China. And we just can't do that. And therefore, it's not really going to matter sort of what pressure is put on us. We want to be on good terms with the United States, of course. We've been allies for a very long time. We've been a friend of the United States for your entire history. We've never been on different sides during wars, and we've never done anything hostile to the United States. And we want to preserve that relationship, but we can't give in to a demand of handing over part of our country.
And we're so glad to have you here to give that perspective, and comparing it to the annexation of a U.S. state to another country might help a lot of our viewers get a feeling for this. Because this is so clear to you, what is Denmark prepared to do to defend Greenland? And do you think that could include military force?
Well, we certainly don't want to use military force in a situation like this. We're defending Greenland normally against, mostly against Russia, who's the big player in the Arctic. We have kept them completely out. We've kept China completely out. They don't have any activities up there. They control nothing. They don't own anything. They don't have any mining. They don't even have a consulate. I normally say that it's difficult to even find a Chinese restaurant in Greenland. That's how much they've been kept out. And the United States can be sure that we will continue to do that. And if we were afraid that China or Russia were about to take over Greenland, we would call for help. But that's not the situation. And I certainly hope it doesn't come to a military confrontation with the United States. That's completely, that would be a disaster for us, of course. And we're well aware of the size difference between us. So we know that the Americans can destroy our military. But of course, in that absurd situation, they would have the duty to fight and protect Greenland as much as they could. So we are actually talking about a war if that happened. And of course, that would be a complete disaster.
It is also very serious. President Trump told our colleagues here at NBC News no comment on whether the U.S. would seize Greenland by force. He doesn't want to take that off the table. What do you think the implications would be? And could the U.S. end up at war with NATO? Or are you thinking in the short run, the meeting in Davos, the talking with leaders could carve out some pathway to avert that?
That's what we're hoping. We want to talk to the Americans about what it is that they think they would achieve in Greenland that they don't already have today. Because the thing is that the United States already has complete and full military access to Greenland. They used to have something like 30 bases up there. They used to have 15,000 soldiers in Greenland. They have reduced that down to one base that looks after missiles flying over the North Pole from Russia in case of a nuclear attack. But they're welcome to have as many bases as they want. They can upscale it. Actually, many of the bases are still there. We kept the runways and the buildings, so you could move right back in if that's what you want. The door is wide open for that. And also, if they have concrete mining projects in mind or anything else, we would love to talk about that. But we can't hand over the sovereignty. And really, it wouldn't give the U.S. anything it doesn't already have. Even if we hand it over for free and without the huge implications for the Western alliance that an attack on a NATO country would have, even disregarding that, it's a terrible business case because the U.S. has full access for free with no expiry date, and Denmark is paying the expenses in Greenland. So I don't know, why would you want to take over that? It really doesn't make any sense.
It is so concerning to lawmakers here in the United States. A bipartisan group traveled to Copenhagen to speak with members of parliament. And did they assure you or reassure you that they are prepared to try to use the tools of Congress to restrain the president on his ambitions to take over Greenland?
Well, they didn't give any promises like that. We're just hoping that the American public, maybe Congress, America as a country, will just rethink this, because we don't recognize you right now. We've been your friend for 250 years. We've never done anything hostile to the United States, ever. There's no threat from Greenland. Greenland has done nothing. And U.S. isn't a country that goes out to subjugate people and take away their freedom and try to sort of govern them in an imperialistic style. And we don't recognize you right now when you're trying to do that. And it seems so strange to us. We would have never thought this would have happened. I think we've been really loyal to you. We've been a very good friend for a long time, and we would never turn on you. I think you would turn on yourselves before we would have. So all of a sudden experiencing that we've been threatened with military invasion seems rather strange.
And of course, after 9/11, Denmark came to the aid of the United States and had a higher rate of casualties per capita than a number of other countries. And so we appreciate, as citizens of the United States, we appreciate that partnership over time. Denmark is among the countries the president said he would want to add tariffs over this issue. And can you give us a quick insight into how you think that would affect your economy? And do you think the EU broadly has a plan to respond to that tariff threat?
Yeah, I don't think it would affect our economy that much, to be honest. It's certainly not going to change our position. Those tariffs could be 200% or 1,000%, and we wouldn't change our position. This is not for us a matter of money. We're not going to sell Greenland at any price, and it also means it doesn't matter if tariffs or any other economic pressure is put on us. We just can't do it. I mean, it's impossible for us. It would be against everything we stand for, just to sell people like there's some kind of product we can just sell off. That's just not going to happen. Greenland should be run by the Greenlanders. Their society should be run by them. And they're with Denmark because they want to be. They've had the option of leaving Denmark for 17 years, but they certainly don't want to replace Denmark with someone else that's just going to own them and take away their freedom and any dream of independence that they might have. So we want to get back to a partnership. We think it's been very productive to be allies of the Americans. We greatly appreciate that. We greatly appreciate everything the U.S. has done for Europe. We fully understand that some Americans are tired of spending as much money on defense and that Europe should spend more on defense. And we're actually doing that. Last year, 2025, Denmark spent more than 3% on our defense, which is the same as the U.S. So we are doing, we think, what the Americans should expect us to do. And in Ukraine, we're fighting Russia. We spend a lot of money down there. Denmark is the leading contributor to that fight against Russia. And if the U.S. wants to stand strong against Russia and China, we should be allies. We shouldn't be fighting each other and going for each other's territory.
We so appreciate that you would make time for us. Thank you very much, Mr. Jarlov. We appreciate that, and we hope we can continue these conversations as this set of events unfolds. Thank you so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.